closer to the stars. Living off the grid is a requirement for exploration. It has been for most of our expeditions, voyages, and missions to past uncharted areas of the world, the Arctic, Antarctic, new lands, low Earth orbit, and other worlds. Voyages on land vehicles, ships, aircraft, and spacecraft require us to temporarily bring portions of Earth onto our vehicles and onto our destination, effectively and temporarily living away or off from our more permanent natural and artificial environment, or the grid. We often bring water and food, even to short trips to the park and trips to the zoo. Living off the grid is both necessary and natural in many of our familiar instances. When thinking and planning on voyages to space and other worlds, living off the grid is not an option, it's a necessity. During our explorations, when we get off the ground, our off-grid life will be our only life available until we touch down again. The potential for semi-permanent to permanent habitability away from Earth is beginning to seem more real as the years pass. With more capable minds and technologies dedicated to the task, it seems we're only decades away from this prospect. Space-based habitats have been seriously considered, even planned, since the 1970s and 80s in the US. Some with compelling detail, such as the NASA Princeton University summer studies of the 1970s, and the colonization of space, the moon and Mars are now very popular and supported, even by powerful national space agencies, such as the Indian Space Research Organization, Roscosmos, the CNSA, the ESA, and NASA. It is also supported by a growing number of commercial endeavors, such as Pioneer Aeronautics, Bigelow Aerospace, Blue Origin, and SpaceX. Living off the grid, away from Earth, must begin here on the ground. Such unfathomable undertaking as living away from the planet where we evolved will take every effort we can muster. Efforts such as the ESA's Mars 500, the Mars Society's Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, and Biosphere 2. These are testament to the serious sacrifices made in the name of future long-term and permanent habitation of other worlds. Living off the grid on Earth begins to normalize and build upon, to whatever extent it is performed, the requirements to live in non-terrestrial environments. It is a long-term dry run that can be expanded gradually and even be passed on to future generations for further development. In this way, what we now consider grueling trips to Mars and beyond may become little more than enjoyable routine trips to space. Some off-gridders may take their knowledge and experience of sustainable and efficient living to unbelievable levels, where all is generated and recycled on board an Earth ship home. So I believe that nothing less than these attitudes are what are required to travel to the planets and beyond, and to remain there for the required periods or perhaps indefinitely. So, a widespread movement of off-grid living is among the best approaches I can think of to generate perhaps millions of testbeds of ingenuity and creativity. Currently, among the most difficult barriers for a human trip to Mars, for example, is the fact that the off-grid technologies that mimic Earth environments are just too large and cumbersome to transport into space. In other words, our payload capacity is small, as are our rockets and cargo space. And the lack of gravity, radiation protection, solutions to human psychological factors, and the physical nature of space are among the many other barriers that inflict plans to travel to Mars and beyond. So, getting to work on these problems may be an effort best taken by large numbers of us, those of us with the drive and experience for living off the grid.
Space exploration is the most extreme example that I can think of for living off the grid. It is complete separation from everything on Earth. This is especially true for deep space exploration, when even communication with Earth becomes scarce and slow. But all exploration, including into space, requires taking Earth systems and products along with us. This makes it a fact that we may never completely detach from Earth, as I believe the best we can do is take pieces of Earth along with us: air, water, food, one Earth gravity, etc. Our explorations so far have been relatively short in duration and distance. We have only shyly wandered about 384,000 kilometers out into space, the Earth's average distance to the Moon, and longer duration or permanent habitation of places away from Earth would require us to duplicate Earth wherever we settle. For example, even if we go to a nearby space station, we must bring water, food, and air, along with many other earthly supplies. So, if we ever settle on the Moon or Mars, we must bring Earth plants, animals, and water with us, and hope to start and maintain Earth systems there for our trip's duration. As you read this, space agencies are working on the problems of extraplanetary human habitation, and so it occurs that these problems include many of the same challenges encountered by people living off the grid here on Earth, like water harnessing and recycling, food production, storage and use, energy production and use, communication, waste management, etc. Of course, for space habitation, these problems have been much more challenging, mainly due to the great distance from Earth and the vastly different environment and challenges of space. Space habitation includes an array of challenges that include cosmic and solar radiation exposure, integrated vehicle systems, and many human health concerns, such as physical and psychological problems. Although some of these challenges may be vastly different between Earth and space, living off the grid may contribute to and solve many of these challenges. This may be done largely by off-gridders providing experience data as well as specific methods and technologies. Experience data simply being the lived experiences and solutions through the challenges of off-grid living, and the methods and technologies used to overcome those challenges. All of these may be directly applied or used by extrapolation or direct application to space exploration efforts. Here, we'll briefly discuss possible off-grid contributions that may provide solutions or advances to space exploration challenges, health and psychological problems brought by isolation, water harnessing, use, recycling and wastewater, food production, consumption and waste, off-grid renewable energy production, use and maintenance, and telecommunications use and maintenance. When off the grid, on Earth as well as in space, systems for water, food, and communications all need to run on renewable energy and be part of reliable and efficient systems. And since access to usable raw materials like coal and petroleum will likely and thankfully be out of reach, renewable technologies will be a must. So, off-gridders on Earth who use and maintain renewable technologies have working knowledge with off-grid energy used in space, thus able individuals to contribute in significant ways. People that live off the grid experience different levels of isolation, whether it is physical, social, political, or economic. Isolation is an integral part of off-grid living. How well you manage this isolation can determine the quality of your experiences, performance, and products. So, when living off the grid, managing isolation is very important for various health reasons. Isolation may not only be personal, but also from resources and services. For example, if you are food self-sufficient, you are isolated from the commercial food grid. Thus, you must have considerable knowledge on food sustainability for your particular environment. Then, this off-grid food production knowledge can be used or extrapolated to space habitation food needs. This is especially the case if you are food self-sufficient in areas that are remote or where the conditions for food production are challenging. Also, there are many levels of personal physical isolation you may engage on while off the grid. You may be slightly on a different wave as the rest of your busy and bustling peers, thus you may be labeled and treated as weird or even insane. But keep in mind that though these may be your peers, they may not have a full understanding of the reasons behind your actions. Having said this, in some cases, you may need to become isolated from others to a degree that is necessary, for your safety, peace of mind, or even to avoid harassment. Isolation may not be a difficult task if you reside in a remote location. But successfully coping with the effects of isolation are always good skills to be transferred to space isolation. Again, whatever your level of isolation when living off-grid, it has a series of personal and communal challenges and consequences. When managing these, you can generate experience data. This data can surely contribute to humanity's near-future space habitation, as we know that physical isolation has health, psychological, and social impacts, especially for social animals like us. Organizations like the Mars Society and space agencies like Roscosmos, ESA, and NASA have researched the problems of isolation. These agencies are spending considerable resources to come up with solutions to combat isolation's ill effects, so the importance is there. Also, the off-gridder may be engaged, to some degree, in economic and political isolation. For example, if you spend little to no money for your subsistence, this is economic isolation. And if you participate little to none in the social or political activities of your area, you are socially and politically isolated. Likely, space inhabitants will have to engage in the same types of economic, social, and political isolation. These may occur in space, but they are likely to be limited and localized. But I suspect they are quite similar to the ones engaged by off-gridders in their homes or small networks. Ultimately, if many off-gridders thrive in isolation, their lifestyle and methods can be analyzed and perhaps duplicated in space habitation. Space habitation requires bringing a precious resource from Earth, water. And of course, it requires using it, recycling it, and processing water found in places away from Earth. And water-independent off-gridders have the knowledge, the infrastructure, and the methods to harness, process, and recycle water that is not from the utility tap. And although water use in space has been advanced by space agencies, it is far from solved. Carrying water to space from Earth remains a problem for space habitation due to its weight and bulk. And sources of water are sparse and difficult to extract. Water is abundant on Earth, yet many have problems accessing it, and usable water is often wasted. For example, water recycling systems are rarely used on Earth, so developing simpler and less bulky wastewater recycling can help both on Earth and in space. With widespread use of off-grid water systems, as any other technology, there will be many more test beds for rapid refinement and development. There may be breakthroughs waiting to happen that we don't even fathom right now in many off-grid fields. Food production is an important part of the off-grid lifestyle. Some living sustainably may take this area of off-gridding to advanced levels. For example, people may grow foods, such as farm animals for a whole family, entirely indoors, with the use of artificial lighting, comfortable habitats, and efficient methods. Hydroponics and indoor farming are fields currently studied by large space agencies and institutions, but it is surely lacking results in large numbers, and developments in these fields are sorely needed. Off-gridders may fill in this development gap quickly. For example, artificially grown meat is something that is on the horizon. Singapore has approved the use of cultured chicken meat, which is grown in the lab. Europe may be on the verge of approving the same. So, off-grid efforts could contribute to all sorts of food production methods, including creative approaches. Again, larger numbers of test beds in hydroponics and off-grid farming may supercharge development and breakthroughs in this field. Space habitation and off-grid living both need renewable energy, and although solar and nuclear energy are currently used to power space systems, there may be other energy sources to consider and develop. Again, off-gridders will surely be constantly in the search for more efficiency in their energy production and use, and they surely will continue to strive for more power in their alternative energy technologies. It is no wonder many off-gridders have looked at a variety of energy sources at times including fantastic and elusive ones often advertised. For example, the so-called perpetual motion generators or black boxes, which have attracted my attention and surely that of many other off-gridders, especially in their initial investigations. I believe it is not beyond possible that someone, somewhere, may tap into a yet undiscovered source of energy. But the odds of such groundbreaking, of course, are small. However, these chances would be much larger if millions of off-gridders were, at any given moment, actively searching for these elusive sources. Nikola Tesla and Joseph Newman were among these searchers, and they both had compelling claims of having found such sources, some of which may still need to find the light of day. Likewise, off-gridders may contribute with novel efficient systems to create, use, or conserve energy. For example, many advanced off-gridders may modify or develop methods in mechanical, electrical, and electronic devices that perform work much more efficiently than anything in the market. And such methods and devices, or their successors, may be used in space habitation efforts. Off-gridders may often deploy and develop their own telecommunications infrastructure and technologies. They may modify existing radio equipment and even create a market for specialized communications equipment. Radios may operate through short, medium, long, and very long distances, all efficiently and free of charge. There are many types and frequencies to consider and explore in the radio operation world. For example, HF and VHF radio communications currently have amazing performances, although the learning curve for these is steep, and often these types of communication are difficult to achieve and are erratic. So, the broadening of radio operators as off-gridders may cause rapid improvements on these free and reliable telecommunication systems. Perhaps there could sprout cellular networks with international and even interplanetary capabilities, developed with open-source technologies and digital software that are free of charge. Although in the telecommunications field, anything short of groundbreaking will likely be already owned by the larger telecommunication companies. So don't be discouraged. Again, many breakthroughs may be awaiting as masses of off-gridders take to the airwaves. In summary, perhaps the most voluminous contributions from off-gridders will be their technological experiences and efficient methods. Space habitation will require experienced data and mentalities centered around hyper-efficiency and reliability, both useful for space exploration. And, as all dealing with exploration, it requires engaging in an off-grid lifestyle. Rapid breakthroughs and enhancements in off-grid technologies and methods will be highly useful. In general, space exploration will require the development, building, setup, and maintenance of efficient and reliable systems. Off-gridders may become key contributors in these fields for near-future space exploration or habitation programs. Additionally, off-gridders may even become prime candidates for space habitation itself, largely because of their obviously useful experience, skills, personalities, and training. So, people once considered weird may soon become the heroes of humanity. As only off-grid technologies are used in space by virtue of being away from Earth, and as such, off-grid systems, methods, and mentalities are necessary in space. Currently, off-gridders, although in limited numbers, have contributed for current and prior space missions. As space agencies have traditionally hired independent, well-rounded, and resourceful individuals to go on space forays. People with highly technical, creative, and logical mentalities. These describe an off-gridder almost perfectly. So I believe the off-gridders' efforts in developing and refining their technologies and methods, small and large, will surely contribute to the success of future human space habitation and to the future heroic treks to the stars.
Thank you for listening to this podcast or watching this video. Please subscribe, like, and share so you can support this work and so I can reach more people like you. If you'd like to support this content further, please click on the links provided here. Thank you again. Have a great day.